This is my 8.3 assignment about administering fitness tests. So this is my first slide is my client consultation and profile. So I asked him a few questions. What sport do you play? What position do you play? How many minutes do you roughly get? What team do you play for? What standard do they play at? How long is a typical training session? On a scale of 1 to 10, roughly how hard are the training sessions? To get an idea of the intensity. What would you say your best skills are in your sport? What would you say the skills that need improvement? What components of fitness would you say you're good at? What components of fitness would you say you need to improve are? And what areas of fitness do you believe you should work on are? And these questions are going to give me some more information about how I can help the client. I also asked him a few questions, basic questions like his name, his date of birth, his height, his weight, and this will come in handy later on when I'm carrying out tests on him. So, test information. So these are the 5 tests, that I carried out on my client. So the first one, sit and reach. This test involves sitting on the floor with legs stretched out straight ahead. Remove your shoes, the soles of your feet are placed flat against the box. Both knees should be locked and pressed flat to the floor with palms facing downwards and the hands on top of each other or side by side. The subject reaches forwards along the measuring line as far as possible. Ensure that their hands remain at the same level, not one reaching further forward than the other. After some practice reaches, the subject reaches out and holds that position for 1 or 2 seconds while the distance is recorded. And the requirements of the equipment for this test is a sit and reach box, which is used for this test. The yo-yo test. The yo-yo test is carried out by measuring 20 metres across and marking each end. This 20-metre gap is where the participants of the test will be running between. To carry out the test, you need a speaker with a recording needed for the test. The recording is used to measure how far you've completed the test and how fast you need to be running between the 20-metre space. Once the first bleep sounds, you run to the other side of the measured space. Another bleep will sound by the time you should have reached the other side. This goes back and forth until the participant cannot continue. The time between bleeps shortens so that the participant has to run faster between the 20-metre gap. So that it becomes nearly impossible at one point to even complete it. And it's a test of aerobic capacity, and the client should be fully exerted afterwards. So for this, you need a speaker, audio. You need to measure out 20 metres as well, so some sort of tape measure or something along those lines. Hand grip dynamometer. Hand grip dynamometer meter. Dynamometer is a device which requires the person to put their hand around the handle of the device and squeeze it. When squeezing the device, it takes a reading of how much force you have applied in kilograms. So obviously for this test, you actually need a hand grip dynamometer. Fifth test is the wall toss. A marker is placed a distance from the wall. The person stands behind the line facing the wall. The ball is thrown from one hand in an underarm action against the wall and attempted to be caught with the other opposite hand. The ball is then thrown back against the wall and caught with the initial hand. The test can continue for a nominated number of attempts or for a set time period, for example 30 seconds. By adding the constraint of a set time period, you also add the factor of working under pressure. And with my client, we used 30 seconds to complete the testing. So you need tennis balls, a stopwatch, and a wall. My last test is the lane agility test. The lane agility test is a series of cones placed in a square. The participant must move around the square as quickly as possible while being timed. They must run forwards towards the edge of the square and then sidestep to the other edge and then backpedal down and then sidestep across back to the starting point, where they must do the same but in the reverse direction. Once they have completed this, the timing stops. So it's basically doing a lap around the circuit and then going back the other way around and then completing it. So you need cones to map out the square and a stopwatch to time the participant. So PAR-Q and informed consent. So PAR-Q is basically health screening. So asking my client if he had any of the following conditions, so that I knew if I had to stop training at any point. So he got asthma, bronchitis, heart problems, chest pains, diabetes, high blood pressure, epilepsy, and we later find out my client has got high blood pressure, which may impact some exercises that could have been planned for him. And informed consent is making sure the client knows what's going on. He knows he can pull out at any time he wants. So Do you understand what these tests involve? Are there any tests you don't feel comfortable in participating in? Do you understand you can ask questions at any time? You can pull out at any time from any of the tests. So, reasons to defer or terminate testing. So, deferring or terminating means stopping the test or not even starting the test because of a condition or a reason with either extreme fatigue. So, if the client's struggling to complete the test or he's become too fatigued to carry on and it's getting dangerous, then the testing must stop. Difficulty breathing. If he can't breathe properly, then the test also has to be stopped because it can become dangerous. Extremely high blood pressure. And once your blood pressure reaches a certain level, it becomes dangerous to the person. So if the exercise is making this worse, then with exercise, high blood pressure will rise. So if someone's got a high blood pressure at the start, it will still rise higher, and therefore it can be really dangerous during exercise. Irregular heart rate. So if you're testing someone with a heart rate monitor and you can see that they've got a regular heart rate, it can mean there are problems within the heart while exercising, and it could mean something dangerous going on. If the client doesn't want to continue, they have the right to not to stop doing the test. If the client has cramps and pains, they can stop. Or if the equipment fails and breaks, because if you carry on using equipment that's broken or is faulty, it can mean the client becomes injured, or the client becomes injured, and it can lead to legal consequences, and also the client, sustaining damage. So onto my test justification. So for my components of fitness, I've got aerobic capacity, agility, coordination, strength, vertical leap, and flexibility. And then obviously next to those, I've got the yo-yo test, lane agility test, wall toss, hand grip, dynamometer, vertical leap test, and sit and reach. And these all link to the components of fitness that they're next to. So for yo-yo test, my client wants to improve their fitness and basketball ability. Basketball is a sport which requires high aerobic capacity because you're going up and down the court in quick succession. So yo-yo holds high ecological validity for my client. The yo-yo test was chosen for this test because it is cheap and easy to set up while also being test many individuals at the same time. It is also important to note that the participants' ability levels are not high, so a gold standard for aerobic capacity, a Wingate test or testing, would not be appropriate for these individuals. So, as I said before, the test is very valid, and the test is also very, very reliable. This is because it takes, most people have a smartphone on them these days, so you can quickly get out a smartphone and actually find the audio online. So if something breaks or a phone's not working or the thing that's playing the audio is not working, you can still have something that plays the audio. If the speaker's not working, however, it will be hard to hear while doing it. So that's the only kind of reliable thing, the speaker breaking. But other than that, you can find the audio online easily, and everyone's got a smartphone, so it's not likely to not be able to carry out this test. Suitability, it suits my client because aerobically it's testing his VO2 max and showing, and by when he can't stop, it will show what he needs to improve on if his aerobic capacity is good enough. This test is also practical because it's quite adaptable. That's a better word, because you can do it outside, inside. If you haven't got a long space inside of 20 meters, which might not, you might not have a space of 20 meters where you can run between. So you can do it outside, and there's plenty of space outside. Obviously, plenty of space. You can set this up. So it's you can pretty much do it anywhere. The environment might change the test scores, but it won't differ too much because It's just people running back and forth from 20 metre space. So the lane agility test. My client's main sport is basketball, which involves a lot of quick footwork. The lane agility test holds high ecological validity for my client as a quick change of direction, test the agility and translate over to what happens in basketball games. Lane agility was chosen because it requires minimal equipment while also being quick and easy to set up and participate in. The Illinois agility test is most commonly used test for agility, but the lane agility test held more ecological validity for my client as a lateral, backward and forward movement closely mimicked the movements made in the sport of basketball. So once again, this test is very suitable for my client because it shows that it's got a direct link to what will be happening in his basketball games and his training sessions. So by practicing this test or carrying out this test, you can see if he needs to improve his agility or if it's a thing that he needs to improve on, or if it is a strength of his. It is a reliable test because all you need is a stopwatch. Everyone's got a stopwatch on their phone. It's reliable because everyone's got a stopwatch, and also all you need is cones or something to mark out a square that the person runs around, and that's it. It's very simplistic equipment, and it is practical because you don't need a lot of space. All you need is I think it's a 5 metre by 5 metre square to actually run around, so it's not long at all. So moving on to the wall toss. The wall toss is used to test hand-eye coordination and the speed of this skill. Basketball involves controlling the ball with your hands, and so hand-eye coordination is key during this sport. Its ecological validity is high. The test uses minimal equipment and therefore is a good test to use on multiple people. This test is also practical because all you need is a tennis ball or some sort of ball that will bounce off a wall and a stopwatch to time how long they are doing it for. So while also being practical, this also helps. You can't directly link it to hand-eye coordination in basketball because they're two different skills: dribbling the ball and catching a ball from the wall, a smaller ball. So it's not directly linked, but it can suggest if someone needs to improve something. Such as hand-eye coordination, is a good guideline to see if my client needs to improve his hand-eye coordination if he scores badly on this test. It doesn't necessarily mean he's got bad hand-eye coordination within basketball, but it can suggest that it is something that he needs to improve on. It's reliable because you don't need much equipment. All you need is a wall and a ball. You can account for human error with the timing, but it's minimal. It'll be minimal. False data. The test is also quick, and you can test because it's only a 30-second test. You can test multiple people multiple times in a short amount of time. So you can get quick results easily. It's a good test to use. So for strength, hand grip dynamometer. Hand grip dynamometer test is a widely used test for strength, although it's not the gold standard for testing for strength or 1 rep max. It is suitable for the level of athlete taking and carrying out this test. It has low ecological value as my client plays basketball, and this test does not link directly to a specific skill in the sport. The hand grip dynamometer links to forearm strength, and it is only an indication of someone's actual strength. Someone could have really powerful legs and weak arms and score badly on this, but have a lot of strength in his legs, so it does not carry over to the sport directly. Therefore, it's not that suitable, but it is a guideline to see how strong my client is. And it can suggest that he needs to work on his strength, or his strength is good. So that means that in turn means that validity is also not that high, and reliability isn't either, because it's not actually telling you. It's only giving you your forearm strength and nothing else from the body. It is practical though because it's quite easy to use and it's a small piece of equipment that you can carry around.